Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. Sandra and I just got back from reading at Whiteford Avenue Elementary School today. It's always great to be in the presence of young children and to watch my wife as she reads to them and entertains them in the process of that. Today we're here to celebrate the Read Across Georgia Month, and I will be formalizing that with a resolution here in just a minute. But I begin by simply expressing my appreciation to the Department of Early Child Care and Learning, who are the ones who are carrying forward on this Get Georgia Reading effort. To Commissioner Jacobs and to her team, thank you all very much for trying to make sure that every child is reading and growing in our state. You know, a couple of weeks ago, a celebrated Southern author by the name of Harper Lee passed away. Many of you will perhaps remember that she wrote a book over a half a century ago that continues to capture the imagination of both young and old alike. It is titled To Kill a Mockingbird. Many of you perhaps have read the book or seen the movie. It has been a big influence on many people. In fact, it was voted the best novel of the 20th century by a poll of the Library Journal. And you might remember that the main character in the book is a young lady by the name of Scout, who reads with her father, Atticus, on a nightly basis. They read newspapers, books, whatever they can find. When Scout is told that she may have to give up those nightly sessions where her father helps to expand her mind and strengthen her literary skills, she becomes very despondent. Listen to the simple yet poignant way she describes how she felt. And I quote, "Until I feared I would lose it, I never loved to read. One does not love breathing." Scout took it for granted that she was not only able to read, but that she would always be able to do so freely and without difficulty, just as we take for granted our ability to breathe. And just as we need to breathe in air to live, we also need to breathe in knowledge by reading in order to live well. We take far too many things for granted, of course. For instance, we expect that all students should be able to read on third grade level before they leave the third grade. But unfortunately, only about a third of Georgia students are currently able to do that. We've increased that percentage, but we still have work to do. We take for granted that someone, somewhere, sometime will teach our children how to read. But the truth is, the greatest support for literacy skills comes from within the home. We take for granted how powerful the ability to read is because it has become commonplace for most of us. But if knowledge truly is power, then reading is the only reliable means of obtaining that power. Another writer by the name of Joseph Addison, who lived in England during the beginning of the 1700s, once wrote, and I quote, "Reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body." Just as our children need physical exercise to grow properly, they too need to work those intellectual skills and those muscles by reading. And the best coaches for these mental exercises are parents, grandparents, guardians, neighbors, older siblings, cousins, relatives of all sides, or anyone who will take the time to sit down and read to or read with a child. Read a book that engages young minds. Read a newspaper article. Read whatever it takes to get their hands and to appreciate what it means to be able to read effectively. So, from kindergarten through the third grade, we're told that children learn to read. From the third grade on, they read to learn. So if we want them to be prepared for the world that awaits outside the schoolhouse doors, then we have to give them the means for reaching their potential. If we want to keep our state number one in many, many areas, then we have to try to make sure that we get every student possible to be reading at third grade level. So, to my fellow adults, you have some homework to do. Our homework is to help the children all throughout our state to better comprehend and master those skills of reading. Our aim is to inspire within them a love of learning so that they value all of the days of their life, not just when they fear that they might lose it. And if you visit any library, whether physical or virtual, you will find no shortage of tools that you can use to achieve that goal. Let's unlock the imagination of our children. Let's exercise the muscles of their mind. Let's read across Georgia. Commissioner Jacobs, if you will step forward, I would like to present to you at this time an official proclamation of the state of Georgia proclaiming this month of March as Read Across Georgia Month. And thank you and your team for what you do.
Well, thank you very much, Governor Deal. I want to say on behalf of Georgia's youngest learners and us at the Department of Early Care and Learning, we thank you for proclaiming March as Read Across Georgia Month. This is one of our favorite months of the year at the department. And we are always proud to join with you, Governor, and the First Lady, again, to remind Georgians about the importance of early literacy and reading to children in our schools, our child care learning programs, and most importantly, in our homes. These topics of literacy and the importance of reading that Governor and Mrs. Deal have championed since he took office 6 years ago are ideas that educators and leaders have valued and emphasized for generations. In preparing my remarks today, I took advantage of technology and Googled quotations about literacy. I want to share with you a few thoughts that others have expressed about these important skills. Former First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy said, "There are many little ways to enlarge your child's world. Love of books is the best of all." A reporter for the Los Angeles Times once wrote, "No skill is more crucial to the future of a child or to a democratic and prosperous society than literacy." Philosopher and psychologist William James said it this way, "So it is with children who learn to read fluently and well. They begin to take flight into whole new worlds as effortlessly as young birds take to the sky." In a quote that was attributed to several different people, today a reader, tomorrow a leader. If the ideas expressed in these quotations are true, and I believe they are, then Governor and Mrs. Deal's goals and the work being accomplished day in and day out by DECAL and by the Georgia Department of Education are helping to enlarge children's worlds, to ensure a democratic and prosperous society, to raise citizens who will ably lead our state and our country well into the 21st century and beyond. And one last quotation I want to share goes like this. "I want children to realize how important reading is to their lives, how much fun it is, how much they can grow and learn. I tell them, if you learn to read, you can do most anything you want to do." Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the wise person who said those words. She is, without question, one of the most devoted and ardent supporters of quality early childhood education in Georgia. She's the child of educators. She herself was a teacher. She's a mother and a grandmother who believes in the power of reading and education to transform lives. In the past 6 years, she has crisscrossed our state tirelessly, visiting classrooms and reading to Georgia's children. The kids love her, and it is no secret that she loves them right back. Please welcome the First Lady of Georgia, Mrs. Sandra Deal.
Well, thank you all so very much for gathering here. I see so many different areas of reading with the people who are here as representatives. Different ones of you do different things, and that's what makes it so special. Whether you're in the legislature trying to do things through the law or personally going to visit schools and reading, whether you are like Remington, who has led a group to gather books to be given to people who need the books, whether it's through the Board of Education, through I'm wearing a t-shirt given to me by Mike Long, who's on the State Board of Education. our superintendent here, and to all of you, so many of you, and Ariane Weldon, who heads up our Get Georgia Reading program, because she helped us to get the plans together of how to make it more effective. But today we're celebrating Dr. Seuss's birthday, even though we're a day or two late. But it is also Read Across America Week, and everybody all over the United States, we hope, is reading this week. But we don't want to just stop with 1 week. We want to read all year, but especially we're saying let's read this whole month of March. It is important. You know, we want our children to love reading. We want them to be skilled at reading. And if they have those skills, they can become self-employable. I mean, I'm not using the correct word, but we want them to be independent, to be able to earn for themselves a living for them and their families. And the best way I know to do that is to get a good education. And then they can choose what they would like to do in life. And that is what I think is our ultimate goal, is to give them a choice about their lives. And it may be most anything, but we hope that they will do that. And as a part of that, I read a lot of different people's books. But this year, I kind of chose, I like to read Georgia authors, and so I chose one that is local. I chose to read the book by Coy Bowles. Now, Coy plays music with the Zac Brown Band, and most of you have heard of the Zac Brown Band because they've made great impressions for Georgia all over the world, and we're proud of them. But in addition to helping write the songs and perform the music, Coy has written 2 children's books and is working on a 3rd. Now, I have one of the few copies, so it's not quite available yet, but I've been reading this book about Will Powers. And he says this is sort of the story of his life and some of his experience. It's the story of a little boy who really wants to perform in a talent show, but the teacher says, you're just not good enough. But the reason was he had not practiced enough, and that's what his parents told him too. And although he was good in a lot of things, he hadn't practiced enough to be good at playing the guitar. And so he determined that he was going to show his parents and his teacher, and he was going to practice just enough to get by this particular occasion. And as he practiced and practiced and practiced, he found out he liked it and he got good at it, and he won 2nd place. But he also won the admiration of the people who were listening to him, his classmates. And that was satisfying to him too. And that's what we want our children to do. They don't have to perform all the time, but they need to find something that makes them happy, that fills their soul. But they get that through practicing, and that's what I tell them, whether it's practicing a sport, practicing reading, practicing musical instruments or singing or whatever. They need to practice. And we as parents and adults need to practice too. And before I let Coy Bowles come up and speak, I want Pam Williams to come up. She's been going around and reading too. She hasn't gotten this book yet, but she's on her way to get one. Pam, come up. I want Pam to turn around. We're going to show you what's on the back of our shirts. Somebody read it.
You're never too old, too wacky, too wild to pick up a book and read to a child.
And that's what I want you to do. Coy, would you come on up? We're going to invite Coy to come up and speak to you very briefly. And this, if you'd like to hold your
Thank you very much. Wow, I'm so excited about this. So I'm from Thomaston, Georgia, a small town. My mother probably still reads to this day 2 to 3 books a week. So I grew up around reading in the house on a constant occasion. So over the last 8 years, my life has just been an amazing journey. It's like getting strapped to a rocket and blasting off. From winning 3 Grammys, numerous country music awards. Last year we played 3 sold-out nights at Fenway, which if that tells you anything, Paul McCartney sold out 2. So, I wake up every day and I pinch myself and I call my mom and dad and I go, I just can't believe this is happening, you know? And I live every minute to the fullest and I still practice as hard as I ever did. But this book is kind of a reflection of my life. I tried out for middle school band when I was in 7th grade, and believe it or not, did not make it. And I went back, and later that year I started playing guitar, and I was kind of, all my friends were going and playing in drumline in 6th and 7th and 8th grade, and I was kind of sitting at home, and I didn't get to be a part of that musical experience. And so it kind of drove me to practice the guitar more. And so the guitar, I'm the only child and live way out in the middle of Thomaston, Georgia, on a little 30-acre farm that my parents had. So there wasn't a lot to do besides play with my dog and play guitar and shoot my BB gun and whatnot. So, but I practiced every day, and it became something that was mine, and it was my own drive and my own work ethic. It's which got me where I am today. I ended up going to Georgia State and got a degree studying jazz and music. And have lived a really full life off of playing music. But it all really came from my parents not allowing me to be lazy as a kid. If my dad said, I want you to take out the trash, I couldn't say, I'll be there in 30 minutes. I had to get up, even if the Dukes of Hazzard was on. He might let me slide on the Dukes of Hazzard, but I had to get up right then and go and do exactly what he said, and I just was not allowed to be lazy as a kid. And my parents have amazing work ethic, and I grew up around that. And I can't think of anything more desirable to have from an individual, because you don't have to be the smartest, you don't have to be the best, but if you work harder than anybody else, then there's nothing can beat that. And that's kind of my through and through quality, is just the work ethic. I will outwork you for sure. I might not be better than you, but I will put in the time for sure. So I went around when I wrote my first book called Amy Giggles Laugh Out Loud. Came from a story of a friend of mine whose now wife had a really crazy laugh when she was a kid, and people made fun of her. And so now she laughs differently. She holds it in. And I walked around for months just going, that is the wildest thing. I mean, it's kind of like making your heart stop or something. I mean, changing your laugh is such a peculiar thing. So I ended up writing a story called Amy Giggles Laugh Out Loud. In the story, Amy gets picked on for the way she laughs. People make fun of her. She decides she's never going to laugh again. During the story, somebody there's a frog that gets loose in the room, spills orange juice everywhere in the lunchroom, and everybody starts laughing, and then Amy tries to hold it in, ends up busting out with laughter. Her laugh is infectious and causes everybody else to laugh, and then they really enjoy her even more because of her laugh is so contagious, and at the end she's kind of the hero because of being herself and her unique qualities, which if there's anything I've learned along the way is that being unique is a very important thing, because you only live one life, and especially with the arts that I do, you really got the whole journey of life in my art form is discovering every day who I am a little more. So that book was really important. It took me 2 years to do it. I had absolutely zero clue what I was doing. And I got a lot of response to it. One lady sent me a message that her daughter was born with a cleft lip, and she kind of tucks her head and hides her face, and sent me a message that said that now after reading Amy Giggles, she kind of holds her head a little more proud and is a lot more boisterous, which I can't think of anything cooler. You know, if I change one person's life with these books, and that's all that really matters. So when I was doing Will Powers, I really wanted to make sure that the issue that I tackled was very pertinent to what was going on in the school systems and with kids today. I taught guitar lessons for about 6 to 8 years before I got in the Zac Brown Band, and that was my form of income. So I spent a lot of time in the classroom with kids and just learned to love that sharing and being the teacher-student relationship. So I wanted to go and talk to the teachers, so I hooked up with a buddy of mine, Danny Brewington, And he got me into about 10 to 15 different schools and ended up talking to some principals of the schools as well. And I sat down with the teachers face to face and said, so what's going on in the schools? What are you guys dealing with? They said, well, bullying is definitely an issue, but also self-entitlement is an issue, and work ethic is a really big issue. And so I thought, you know, what an awesome thing to be able to do to inspire kids to work hard. So that was where the idea of Will Powers came from. So I wanted it to be very relevant and pertinent to what was going on in the school systems today. So fast forward, I'm working to get the book out. Ended up a local guy from Atlanta, Georgia, Brian Detag, did the illustrations. He works at Cartoon Network. And I hook up with Holly Rainey from Sunshine on a Rainy Day, who has a charity group that does, she takes kids with long-term illnesses and goes and does makeovers for their house. Makeovers to their house. Her and her husband just are amazing people. This charity, Sunshine on a Rainy Day, is really doing well. So I hooked up with her. She introduced me to Mrs. Dill, and it's been such an honor getting to know her. Actually, one of the guys in the band is from Gainesville, so there's this common thread of Gainesville. It's so interesting how you're never too far away from knowing somebody from a small town in Georgia, you know? So I'm so excited for this book. I'm so excited to meet the Dill family, and I got to meet her daughter yesterday. I was here for promoting the Georgia Music Appreciation Day, and I'm very excited for this book to come out. I hope that everybody can pass along the word, if you don't mind. And we came up with Mrs. Dill, who's full of cool ideas, came up with this idea for sending signed copies to all the other First Ladies of the United States. So we have 49 copies of this book going out to all the First Ladies to promote Read Across America. Yeah, it's really cool. So I'll give you a little tidbit of information how crazy this is. I was about 2 weeks from self-publishing this book like I did the last book. Randomly ended up talking to a publishing company who was interested in the book, and now the book is going to be published. It's actually on pre-sale now and comes out on April 19th. But she had this idea, and I was so interested in doing it and getting it out to where this is the only copy that physically exists right now in the world, and Mrs. Dill had it. You know, so she was so cool, and it was such an honor to be working with these guys to where I told the publishing company, if you want to work with me, there's one thing that's got to happen. I got to get one copy to Mrs. Dill so she can read it for this Read Across America thing. And you're talking about weeks of hustle, staying on top of these guys to make it happen. But they pulled it off, which was really awesome. And this still has a copy, so we can influence kids. So thank you guys so much for your time. I'm so honored to be here today, and I want to pass it along to Superintendent Woods.
Again, it's a pleasure to be with you, but today I really not necessarily feel like I'm speaking as state school superintendent, but maybe as Coach Woods, as I was known in the classroom. Because I thought about today, and as a history teacher, we try to focus on maybe things that really transform the world. And I thought about today as we look and celebrate reading that there was a man in Europe many years ago by the name of Johann Gutenberg. And he developed the movable printing press. And for the first time, individuals, just regular individuals, not the nobility of Europe, were able to have books in their hand. And I think about the impact that the written word has had across the world. Even within our nation's history, if you look at how the written word had on our founding, the printing press, writs of correspondence that took place that we have. And so, we recognize how important reading is. And now fast forwarding to my position as state school superintendent, one of the things that I had a passion for was literacy. But I would say this, that, I'm very blessed and honored that as in coming to this position, I actually had a couple, Governor Dill and Mrs. Dill, who had the foresight of saying literacy is important. Now, they have made my job very easy. And that, the commitment here is that I'm very pleased to say that these two individuals have done more to advance reading in our state than any first couple that I can remember. And I think they're recognizing that how important reading is. You know, reading can open up a gateway, and as I've shared with individuals across the state, I said, I don't care what course you take, you know, whether it's PE, whether it's band, music, our traditional core classes, CTA classes, there is always one common denominator, and that is you have to be able to read. And I think that as you go on into business, as business has met and shared with you many times, and said, Richard, what we need is that we need a workforce that can read, because that will attract people into our state. That will attract people to come in, because many times what they look at is what type of education that we are providing for our kids. And I cannot think of probably the best thing that we could tell individuals, especially as we reach out to pull business in, but as people look to Georgia as well, is not that, you know, hopefully one day as we get Georgia reading, but I hope by the time that, you know, the Lord, you know, allows me to step down, that what we can say here is that Georgia is reading. You know, that would be a legacy, probably if I had to, you know, think of anything that I could leave, that's what I would leave with. And so I thank, you know, myself, and again, once again, the Governor and the First Lady for your commitment to our children in this area. And so I will pledge, you know, myself and my department that as long as I'm here, you know, we will be doing that. And we are reaching out today. I think we look at, you know, what we're looking at this summer, working with our public libraries, kind of what I call the Read and Feed program, that, you know, we need to make sure that our kids are reading year-round, but now while we have our feeding program, perhaps the best way we could do that is have that at our public libraries. And that brings our families to a location in which we have books and we have activities to show this is important. So I encourage you during the summer, or if you have time, to make sure that your kids are reading and that we have equal access to reading across the state, because that will greatly transform, more than anything we do in education, it will transform where we need to go. So once again, I appreciate the work of the Governor and the First Lady for what they are doing and their effort, and I applaud them for that. And I thank you for your time and for each individual up here for saying that reading is important. So thank you very much, and again, I wish you the best, and always keep reading. Thank you.